Clara always dreamed of a house like this, a quaint two-story nestled at the end of a quiet, tree-lined street. The move-in day was a blur of cardboard boxes, bubbling excitement, and the scent of fresh paint. For the first week, it was perfect. Her new life, her new beginning. But soon a subtle unease began to creep in at the edges of her happiness. It started with small things. A floorboard creaking upstairs when she was downstairs. The faint whisper of what sounded like a rustling curtain, even when all the windows were shut tight. She'd chalk it up to the house settling, the wind, and overactive imagination fueled by late-night unpacking. It's just an old house, she'd tell herself, her voice a little too loud in the empty rooms. Old houses make noises. Then came the feeling of being watched. It was a prickly sensation on the back of her neck, a sudden cold spot in a warm room. She'd be washing dishes, staring out at her new backyard, and feel a gaze so intense it made her turn around, expecting to see someone standing in the doorway. But there was never anyone there, just the quiet, empty house. She started leaving lights on, playing music to fill the silence, but the feeling persisted, a constant, low-level hum of anxiety. One evening, while binge-watching a show on her laptop, a loud thud from the attic made her jump, her heart hammering against her ribs. She grabbed a heavy book, her only weapon, and crept up the stairs. She pulled the attic cord, the ladder unfolding with a groan. Peering into the dusty darkness, she saw nothing. Just old insulation and forgotten cobwebs. "Raccoons," she muttered, trying to convince herself. Probably just raccoons. But the unease was becoming unbearable. Sleep became a luxury. Every creak, every groan of the house sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. She felt like an intruder in her own home. That's when her friend suggested security cameras. "Just for peace of mind," she'd said. "You're living alone for the first time. It's totally normal to be a little jumpy." So Clara ordered a simple system online. 4 small cameras. One for the front door, one for the back, one in the living room, and one pointed down the upstairs hallway. Installing them was easy, and for a couple of days the digital eyes watching over her home did bring a sense of comfort. The strange noises seemed to quiet down. The feeling of being watched lessened. She started to relax again, laughing at herself for being so paranoid. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday. A storm was rolling in, the wind rattling the windows, and the power flickered twice. Clara was curled up on the sofa, a blanket wrapped tightly around her, when the feeling returned stronger than ever before. It wasn't just a prickle on her neck this time. It was a suffocating presence. She felt it in the air, a heavy, watchful stillness that defied the storm raging outside. Her breath hitched. The music playing softly from her phone suddenly sounded distant, tinny. She couldn't shake the distinct, terrifying certainty that she was not alone. The fear was so palpable, so absolute, she felt frozen in place. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She had to know. With trembling hands, she grabbed her laptop and opened the security camera app. "Just a quick look," she whispered to the empty room. "Just to prove I'm being crazy." She started with the footage from the previous week, the day she installed them. She clicked on Monday. The video played in fast forward. There was Clara, moving boxes, cleaning, setting up furniture. All normal. She skipped to Tuesday. The same. Her life on a sped-up loop. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Nothing but her, alone in her house. A wave of relief washed over her. See? Nothing. Just an old house and a wild imagination. She was about to close the laptop, ready to laugh it off and go to bed. But something made her pause, a flicker of doubt. She decided to check Saturday's footage just to be sure. She clicked play. The daytime footage was normal. The sun streamed through the windows as she went about her day. Then the timeline shifted to night. The living room was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of the street lamp outside the window. As the time stop hit 2:17 a.m., she saw it. A movement in the corner of the frame near the hallway. She paused the video, her blood running cold. She rewound it and played it back at normal speed. There, emerging from the deep shadows of the hallway, was a figure. It was tall and impossibly thin, a silhouette of pure blackness that seemed to absorb the light around it. It moved slowly, unnaturally, gliding across the floor without a sound. It stopped in the middle of her living room, its head slowly turning as if scanning the space. It stood there for what felt like an eternity before melting back into the shadows from which it came. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Her hands were shaking so violently she could barely control the mouse. This had to be a glitch, a shadow from a passing car. It had to be. Her logical mind screamed for a rational explanation, but the sheer terror gripping her heart knew better. With a dreadful sense of finality, she clicked on Sunday's footage. Night fell again on the screen. The time stamp read 3:04 a.m. The figure appeared again. This time it was closer. It stood by the bookshelf, its form so dark it was almost invisible against the wood. It tilted its head, a gesture that was disturbingly curious. Clara watched in paralyzed horror as the shadowy thing raised a long, spindly arm and slowly, deliberately, ran a finger along the spines of her books. The books she had just organized. Then it turned its featureless head directly toward the camera, as if it knew she was watching, before it retreated back into the darkness. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. This was real. This thing had been in her house, with her while she slept. The feeling of being watched, the noise as it wasn't her imagination. It was this thing. A frantic, desperate need to know more, to understand, propelled her forward. She clicked on last night's footage. Monday. The time stamp read 1:42 a.m. The figure was in the living room again, but this time it didn't just stand there. It walked over to the sofa. Her sofa. The same one she was sitting on right now. It leaned down, its shadowy form hovering over the very spot where she slept just hours before. It stayed there for a long, horrifying minute, its head cocked as if listening to her breathe. Clara felt a scream rising in her throat, but it was trapped, choked by pure terror. She couldn't breathe. Her house, her safe haven, was a prison, and she was locked in with this entity. She had to get out. She had to call someone, but she was frozen, her eyes glued to the screen. There was one more video to check, tonight's footage, the live feed. With a final, convulsive click, she switched to the live view from the upstairs hallway camera. The image that filled the screen was dark, grainy. It showed the top of the staircase, the closed door to her bedroom, the hallway she had just walked down. For a moment, there was nothing, just an empty, silent corridor. And then, from the sliver of darkness at the edge of her bedroom door, a shadow began to creep out. Long, skeletal fingers curled around the doorframe. A tall, thin silhouette slowly, silently, pulled itself into the hallway. It turned its head, looking down the stairs. It was looking right at the living room, right where she was sitting. The security app on her laptop displayed the live feed with a tiny, almost imperceptible delay, a fraction of a second. She heard a floorboard creak, not from the laptop, not from the video. It came from right behind her,